I'm Meghan Leigh.
And I'm Nicole Danielle.
And this is Romance on the Rocks, where two bookish biddies imbibe.
If this is your first time tuning into us, a little bit about the podcast. Basically, we drink copious cocktails and we review trashy romance novels, and we do some really fun things like award Boobie Prizes. And we rate our books based on a Spicy Scoville scale, and we just kind of chit-chat about things in the book. So welcome to the show if it's your first time, and welcome to our regular listeners as well.
Yes, welcome. I do feel like on our Spicy Scoville scale, we are yet waiting to get past poblano. No, jalapeno. I feel like we've gotten to jalapeno, but waiting for a little more habanero, waiting for our, is it ghost pepper that we're doing? No, Carolina Reaper.
And actually, my Thanksgiving book was habanero.
Oh, that's right. It was. Okay, we're getting there. I feel like majority of them, though, have been that poblano, possibly edging on jalapeno.
Yes.
I'm not going to say that my book today is getting into the territory of extra spicy, but one of these days we will have that extra spice thrown at us.
Hopefully, I live for the day.
Exactly. We look at these novels and try and find things we can relate to, things that maybe we feel are a little outdated or not things that really jive with us. But I feel like there's a little bit of something we can take from every one of these books that at least moves us forward in the world of romance.
Yes. So, Meghan, what is your cocktail this evening?
Oh, so my cocktail is in this coffee mug that I actually got in a layover at the airport in Switzerland. And I thought it looked kind of wintry. And since we're doing our Christmas one, that was the way to go. And in my book today, there is a scene where the leading lady has a hot chocolate made for her by one of the men in the book. And he laments that it should only really be consumed if you've got a coffee liqueur or a brandy. And he does find some coffee liqueur in her apartment and makes her a hot chocolate with coffee liqueur. So I have a hot chocolate with a little bit of instant coffee in it because I did not have coffee liqueur, but I did have brandy. So there is brandy in mine. I kind of got the best of all the worlds there.
Hooray.
And how about you? What do you got?
I am drinking a Christmas margarita.
Ooh.
I have to say I've never had a Christmas margarita, though I certainly have had my fair share of regular margaritas in my lifetime.
I'm trying to figure out what would make it Christmassy. Is there some sort of like pine element, like a juniper or cranberry? What exactly makes it?
Correct. Yeah,
okay,
cranberry.
There we go.
So what's in it is tequila, and then triple sec, which I actually did not have triple sec, so I substituted with orange juice, and then cranberry, and then lime juice. So not overly complicated. I can't decide how I feel about it, but I'm going to drink it anyway.
I think it sounds really nice. I would definitely go for something like that. So, good call. My book today is called A Familiar Christmas by Caroline Burns. I didn't realize when I first picked up this book that familiar is actually the name of the cat. So, it is a familiar Christmas. He is a reoccurring character that this author has written an entire romance series around. So, the cat is a detective and shows up in these romance novels to solve mysteries and to make sure that the leading characters get together. So familiar is the cat. And again, to go with our theme today, my Jingle Bell earrings here have a little cat hanging on them.
Oh, shut up. That's so funny.
No. Oh, yeah. I'm really getting into it, you guys. So for as much as I'm not into the cheesy Hallmark movies, I will dress myself up like a cheesy Hallmark movie. I have no issues with that. In this book, our leading folks are Hunter Sems and Sylvie West. Hunter is a former doctor. He no longer practices medicine. He now is an inventor. And he has created a line of dolls he believes are going to help children in poor situations to be more healthy. So it still kind of goes with the caretaking, but his invention is a doll that has a secret formula in it that is antibacterial and will help boost immune systems. Don't ask me how that works. This book was written in 1999, and I think that's perhaps earlier than we realized that antibacterial didn't necessarily mean that, like, you were healthier. So, giving out these dolls at the time may have sounded like a really good idea, but he's got this inventive formula. It's all herbal based. So, all the granola crunchies would love it too. And the names of the dolls are Buster Big Boy and Molly McBride. I felt a little icky even saying the name Buster Big Boy. I don't like it.
I don't like it either.
Yeah.
I feel like could be the name of like a vibrator or something.
Yes. If anybody wants to make a line of toys that we could, slap our Romance on the Rocks emblem on, I would recommend they're called the Buster Big Boy and the Molly McBride.
Oh,
Molly
boy.
McBride would have to have light on it of some sort.
Oh, yeah, like a little glow-in-the-dark light-up action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something you could use under the covers.
Yeah.
So Hunter invents these dolls that are not adult toy dolls. They're regular dolls for children. And the big problem comes when you find out he is being blackmailed for this formula. He thinks that this could be a really big deal for, ending illness for children in poverty. Somebody else sees it as a big money-making scheme. And so he has started getting these anonymous letters saying, you need to give us the formula, otherwise people are going to get hurt. And they have sent information showing that a couple of the dolls that he's already provided to stores have been somehow poisoned. So he feels like he's responsible for perhaps children getting sick or dying if these dolls get sold. So he has already tried to reach out to the New York store where he did his exclusive deal and it tried to buy the dolls back. And the store was like, no, we need this stock for Christmas. He contacted the police, who took a couple of the dolls and actually tested them just to make sure. And they were fine. And so the police are like, no, this is not a thing. So he feels like there's still a big problem. Nobody's listening to him. He can't get any help. He decides in his wisdom that he is going to dress up like Santa Claus as a disguise, and he is going to go to the toy store to steal all of his toys back. So he shows up in the middle of the day. Our leading lady, Sylvie, is stocking the shelves while dressed in her elf costume.
Okay.
So she's putting out the Buster Big Boys, and she's head to toe elf with elf shoes and everything. And your introduction to Sylvie West is of a very cynical woman who hates Christmas and can't wait for the season to be over. And the one thing she enjoys is she does like the kids being there and the kids being happy, but the holiday is just not for her. So she's stocking the shelves. She's kind of zoning out. There's like a voiceover for the cat coming into this scene, familiar. And so he kind of comes in and he talks about how he's come to this toy store to buy toys for his human friends, his humanoids. And he's got his credit card hanging from his collar. And he's talking about like how he sees Santa coming in and that Santa looks awfully nervous and sweaty. And then he sees, the elf and, she's got long legs and they're so beautiful. It's a little weird that the cat talks about women in the way he does. Basically that she's like really attractive. And I'm like, I don't know that my cat is looking at me like that, and that'd be weird if he did. So anyway, so the cat's there. He sees this scene happening where the Santa comes in. He is trying to steal back all his toys. Sylvie West has been stocking the shelves, and now Santa pulls a gun on her, tells her to get on the ground and like start shoveling the toys into the bag he brought. So while she's doing this, the cat is like, oh no, I'm a detective. I need to make sure that this situation is solved. And so he jumps into the toy sack. So now the cat's in the bag. The cat is in the Santa sack with the toys. And as Hunter is trying to pull the Santa sack, shots ring out. He's not the one shooting. I don't know why shots ring out, but they do. And in this situation, somehow Sylvie gets hurt. And so he sees that she's hurt, and he basically scoops her up and the toys, runs out the door, throws her and the toys into a van, and drives away. So they get back to his warehouse, and he pulls her in there and tells her, I'm not going to hurt you. I was just really concerned because you're bleeding, like over here, somewhere by her ear or her head, or I don't know. He's like, I'm a doctor. I was worried that you were like gravely injured. So I scooped you up to bring you back to my warehouse to treat you. Okay. So he treats her wound. She realizes he's not actually going to hurt her and asks him why he did what he did. He explains the whole thing. She believes him, and she says there probably were better ways to go about it. He's like, yeah, probably, but I was desperate because Christmas is almost here. I felt like people were going to be in danger. He's like, plus, you were never really in danger. It was a fake gun, because that matters. This whole thing goes down. She believes him and says, guess what? I'll help you. I work at that toy shop. I can probably find the receipts for whoever bought these dolls. That will help us track them down and make sure that the children who bought the dolls aren't affected. The cat is, of course, there. He's jumped out of the bag and is helping to solve crimes, I guess. She goes back to work, gives the cop the slip because they're looking into the fact that there was just an armed robbery and a kidnapping. Her coworker, Alice, who is a nice older woman, intervenes with the cops and is like, she's exhausted. You can't talk to her now. Leave her alone. And the cops are like, okay. And they leave. Because again, that's how the world works. So she gets the information, the names and stuff. She's ready to leave work and give those names to Hunter. She walks outside and almost gets kidnapped again. How many kidnappings can one person have in a 24-hour period? I don't know.
Yeah.
But she walks outside and this thug grabs onto her and tries dragging her away. She's kicking and screaming and trying to get away. And an older gentleman intervenes, just waves his big umbrella around and smacks this thug with his umbrella until the thug leaves. So now she's standing on the sidewalk in her elf costume after getting assaulted by a stranger. And this nice older man with an umbrella tells her how cute she looks in her little outfit. And isn't it just a coincidence that he goes to the local orphanage to play Santa to give out gifts? And it would be great if she would come with dressed as an elf because he doesn't have an elf anymore. His wife used to play that part and she is now gone. And so now Sylvie feels obliged because this man just saved her life. And so she says, sure, I'll meet you at the orphanage. I can see the quizzical look on your face.
She doesn't even know this guy, but she's just going to believe his story and go off with a stranger?
He did umbrella smacking. So, she trusts him
She
now.
still doesn't know who he is.
He's Chester Fenton. That's his name.
Chester.
He introduced himself,
Okay.
Chester Fenton. So she says, sure, I'll meet you at the orphanage. And this is where we find out about Sylvie's past. Sylvie grew up in that orphanage, which is one of the reasons she also feels obliged to go.
Okay.
I did the math on that. When I say grew up in the orphanage, she went to the orphanage when she was 12, 13, something like that. Did you know that the U.S. hasn't had orphanages since the 1960s or 70s?
Okay, I was going to say, I don't think they have orphanages anymore.
They don't. And in 1999, that's a huge part of this book, that they go to the orphanage multiple times to go see the children. And I had to look it up because I was like, I really feel like that's not a thing anymore. But in the 50s and the 60s was when they really solidified the foster program. And so kids go into foster care. There really aren't any institutions like an orphanage anymore. So a big chunk of this book is based on a premise that just doesn't even exist anymore. And it was written contemporary. So it was supposed to be happening in the late 90s.
Okay.
So, anyway, we're going to a non-existent orphanage. She makes friends with Chester Fenton. And, we go forward a little bit. I feel like the cat part of this, the fact that this entire book is a mystery based on this cat character, he didn't have to be there. There was very little that this cat did except complain about being hungry and once in a while meow jingle bells for attention.
Okay.
This cat is with Hunter, and Hunter's thinking that this is a lost cat that he has to get back to an owner. There's a caller. He calls the phone number on the caller, and it goes to a voicemail that talks about Familiar being the only cat detective in the United States. Thank you for calling Familiar's hotline, the only cat detective in the United States. So now Hunter has decided it's not a lost cat. This cat can just stick around. And I totally believe that he's a detective. So I'm so glad he's here. So nobody's questioning the fact that this cat is a detective and this cat is with them everywhere they go. Hunter gets a note that he is to go to this pub in kind of a crummy neighborhood to get further instructions as to where he needs to drop off the secret formula. Sylvie recognizes the pub and says, I'm going to go first. That's my old stomping grounds. I know the bartender, and I'm going to try and make sure that I've gotten in there a little early to see if I can set up a little more, like help. So she goes, talks to the bartender, who warns her that this is a terrible idea and she shouldn't be doing any of this. And then he says, oh, and by the way, your ex-boyfriend has been in here looking for you. She hasn't seen this guy in like 10 years. She ran away from the orphanage with this guy. His name is Augie Marcel. And he was bad news. He, like petty crime and hanging out with a lot of the wrong people. And so a decade ago, she basically walked away from him and didn't look back. And now she finds out he's back in town and looking for her on top of all this other stuff that's going on. She asks the bartender to please let her know if any folks that kind of fit the description of like her previous kidnappers, or, if any of these people come in, she thinks it's all connected to this thing with Hunter's dolls, because they know now that she's been hanging out with Hunter. Bartender calls Sylvie and says, hey, one of the people who just left here and dropped off the envelope fits the description of your kidnapper. He's going to be leaving the pub right now. She's waiting outside in a cab and tells the cab driver, follow that man. Okay. Sylvie finally gets to the spot where this man has stopped. He's hovering outside a building. She sees it's Augie Marcel. It's her ex. So now she knows her ex is involved in this whole scheme. My question here was, the bartender knows her ex has been looking for her. Her ex has been in the bar looking for her. He knows what the ex looks like. Why would he call her and say, hey, a guy fitting the description of what you said, a person who kidnapped you? Wouldn't he just say your fucking ex was just here? I thought that was so weird. I'm like, you know who he is. Not just a guy who fit the description of your kidnapper. Like, no, your ex-boyfriend was here. I don't know. I don't know if I missed something. I don't know. I read that part like 3 times trying to figure it out. So now she knows for sure Augie is definitely involved. She goes back to work. She spills all of this information to Alice, her coworker. So now Alice knows everything. And while she's telling Alice, Connie Sems shows up. Connie Sems is Hunter's ex-wife.
Okay.
So now his ex-wife is at the work, and she comes up to Sylvie and says, hey, I know you've been hanging out with my ex-husband. Just a warning to you, like, he gets super obsessive about his work. Sylvie's kind of weirded out by the fact that Connie showed up to tell her this and doesn't quite understand why Connie is even there. And then Connie says, this was a mistake for me to come here. Sorry, didn't mean to. And then leaves. An odd interaction. So then you've got to wonder, okay, is Connie involved somehow? Why is she just showing up for no reason? Sylvie goes back home. She thinks this is all moving way too fast. There's a lot going on. While she's at home and she's thinking, maybe I shouldn't stay in town. The fact that Augie's here is really making me uncomfortable. I feel like maybe I need to get out of here. She has a knock at her door. And who is it? Chester Fenton, the old man who fought off people with an umbrella. And she rightfully says, did I tell you where I live? And Chester's like, oh yeah, dear, you totally told me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm getting real uncomfortable because now she's just got a guy showing up at her apartment. And while he's there, he's the one that makes her this delicious drink because her nerves are shot. And so he makes her a drink with all this stuff from her fridge. I kept waiting for him to poison her because I was like, this man definitely is going to poison someone, right? Whole book is about poison. And then he offers to get her a Christmas tree because her apartment is too sparse. And she says, I mean, maybe. And he goes, oh, good, because I already have it in the hallway. And he just like plops a Christmas tree into her apartment. Because, older dudes are always coming over to my house to make me drinks and plop a Christmas tree into my... I like when older dudes plop a Christmas tree into my living room. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's so many people to be suspicious of for this whole like kidnapping and poisoning plot. Now, where's the romance, you may ask?
Yes, I was going to ask where the F the romance is.
Were you going to ask that?
Yeah, I was. I was like, okay, Meg, where's the romance?
This was one of those books where we're definitely at a Poblano level of romance.
Oh,
There's some kissing. There's like one night of sex, but you don't really get anything out of it other than it's just like he looked at her, she looked at him, and then next thing you know, it's the morning.
oh,
So
okay.
there's not a lot, and I felt like there was no reason for them to like each other. These were the kinds of characters where I didn't see the attraction aside from like she was pretty.
Like, yeah, what's the motivator for them hooking up?
Yeah, she's pretty. He's hot. I really didn't feel a lot of connection between them. I think on his part, she believes him and his story. That was the initial, like, that's what made him feel some sort of attraction, that somebody finally believed him, so he felt validated. And I think maybe from her perspective, he's hot. I don't know. I just didn't feel it.
So spoilers for the ending or leaving it a mystery?
I'm going to leave it a mystery just because who done it for the poisoning was way more interesting than the romance.
Okay.
It really was. I didn't get anything out of that. Their romance. Now, of course, by the end, we're supposed to believe that they are 100% in love after, 3 days of running around the city trying to find a poisoner. Call me cynical in my little outfit here, but I am. And I don't really feel like the cat solved a whole lot. But did I feel like it was a fun little read? Sure. It was fine. It's not something that I would tell people to rush out immediately and read, but it also was not the worst book that I've read in the last couple months. So,
okay. And who was this by again, Megan? Who was the author?
Caroline Burns.
Okay.
Caroline Burns. And there's a whole bunch of these.
I was going to say the cat shows up in other stories from her. Okay.
Yeah. And you could kind of tell you are supposed to have known that all these other people existed in that town. The cat talks about other people, I think, in a way where I'm supposed to have read previous books to know who his girlfriend is or to know who his owners are. It sounds like there's a more expansive world. But okay. I didn't need to know that expansive world in order to read this book and feel like I had the full picture.
Okay.
So that was good. There's one thing I will spoil, which is Hunter does not get arrested for kidnapping and use of a dangerous weapon at the end of the book. I feel like he should have at least gone in to be questioned for having attempted robbery. Not even attempted. I mean, he committed robbery.
He did commit robbery.
For robbery, kidnapping, and the use of a deadly weapon. But because this is a Christmas book and apparently his heart was in the right place, nobody says boo about that at the end. That does not come up even once where the police are like, hey, now that we've solved the poisoning, let's also talk to you about the fact that you went into a toy store with small children, committed a felony, stole a person and a bunch of stuff, and brandished a weapon. They don't bring it up at all. Not even once. So
bizarre.
It's like, well, but it is a Christmas book narrated by a cat. And so I suppose I'm supposed to suspend my disbelief enough that also should have been a detail that I ignored. So that's it. Merry Christmas.
Crimes don't matter. All right, we are going to take a brief little break to refill our bevies, and then we'll be back with my book.
Want to show Romance on the Rocks podcast your love? It's easy. Visit www.buymeacoffee.com/romanceontherocks. You can buy us a book or two and show us your love and support. Thanks in advance.
1225 Christmas Tree Lane by Debbie Macomber. Before we dive into this actual book, let's talk about Debbie. Let's talk about Macomber.
Debbie, do it.
Debbie has a huge following, won various awards, has over 170 million copies of her books in print worldwide, and has done and does various charitable works. Also a knitter. 6 novels were made into Hallmark movies. Debbie Macomber's Mrs. Miracle, Call Me Mrs. Miracle, Trading Christmas, Mr. Miracle, Dashing Through the Snow, and Mrs. Miracle Christmas. I have to tell you, I do watch Hallmark movies. They're my guilty pleasure. I enjoy them. I can honestly say I've never seen a single one of those movies.
Do we make
Never
that
even heard of
our...
them.
I was gonna say, do we make that part of our Christmas to-do list?
Maybe. Also, she has the Cedar Cove books, which this Christmas book is actually part of that collection. And those were turned into a Hallmark Channel TV series, which I have also not seen.
I feel like you've got a lot of stuff on your plate.
Yeah.
Got a lot
I
of
don't think
Debbie
I'm going
to
to watch that. No, I'm good.
I take it from that the book was not your cup of tea.
It really was not. I'm just going to be honest. I am sure Debbie has earned every one of her awards and is perfectly justified in having her books turned into movies and TV shows. It is not my jam. And I'm a Hallmark girl. I love me some Hallmark. This was not cutting the mustard, as they say. So let's dive right in.
Bring it.
Our main characters are Beth, who, Meghan, of course, she owns a Christmas tree farm in the Pacific Northwest, because why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
The other main character is Kent, who is her ex-husband. They were married 23 years. There is no real reason why they got divorced. They just grew apart, apparently.
Okay.
Then there are their college daughters, Bailey and Sophie. And then there is Ted, the local veterinarian. And Bess, I'm using this term very loosely, her love interest. And I'm going to say not really a love interest because they've shared, quote, little more than a few chaste kisses. And to me, it's pretty obvious they're just friends. I can sum up this whole book in just 7 words, Meghan. Parent trap with a basket of puppies. That is literally summing it up. So the book begins with Bailey and Sophie tricking their parents into getting together for Christmas at Beth's home. And by this way, someone has left a basket of 10 puppies, little black lab mix puppies, on Beth's porch. And even though her Christmas tree farm includes a dog kennel business, she's not going to keep any of these puppies, and she's trying to offload them on other people before she goes on a skiing trip with her daughters after Christmas.
So did somebody leave them because they knew she had a kennel, do you think? Because I know sometimes people will be like, oh, that hoarder already has dogs, and they just toss dogs over the fence.
Who can say?
Okay.
Maybe.
Mystery dogs.
Maybe.
Sure.
I mean, that would be logical.
Mm-hmm.
The book is very Hallmarky, and there's absolutely no spice. I can't even put this on our Scoville scale because it's less than a green pepper. It's milk.
When you told me that the other day, you're like, what is less than green pepper? Milk?
Yeah. The antithesis of, it's milk. This book is milk.
This mayonnaise is too spicy.
Yeah. Yeah, better put the ketchup out on the table. Add some spice up.
Oof. Okay. So you've got your milk. Mine was very bland as well, but yours sounds even more so.
Oh, yeah. Chaste kisses.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So also this book is chock full of decidedly dumb details. For example,
what do you got?
The discussion of someone's fruitcake ingredients, which oddly includes green tomato mincemeat, which I've never fucking heard of, and pecans, however you want to pronounce it.
Huh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because it's important to discuss someone's fruitcake ingredients in a book, right?
Well, it is Christmas. You know,
sure.
The one time a year that fruitcake shows its face and tries to make us love it.
I've never even heard of green tomato mincemeat, though. I don't know.
Where did we say this book takes place?
The Pacific Northwest. So green tomatoes
feel
and
like-
pecans makes no sense to me as a setting in the
Yeah.
Pacific Northwest.
Okay, well, to each their own.
Yeah. Pretty much every other chapter in this book is about other people who live in Cedar Cove and offloading the puppies on these people, these unsuspecting victims, I call them.
Yeah.
And, by the way, it's never revealed who dumped the puppies on the porch. In case you had any interest in that mystery, it remains a mystery.
You know what you need? You need Familiar the cat to come solve that mystery for you.
I do.
Yeah. This cat will solve your dog problem.
The book is just not for me. And I was frankly bored to tears. I'm sorry, Debbie Macomber. I was bored to tears. It was predictable. It had a lot of I had a lot of challenges with the attitude surrounding divorce in general. Was really tripping my trigger.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, page 47, as a post-divorce statement by Beth. All she'd ever wanted from him was some indication that he still loved her, that he still cared. Girl, why? You're divorced. Like, why is that? Why is it so important to you that he still be in love with you post-divorce? Made no sense to me.
And they
Same
don't ever
page.
talk about why they got divorced.
They do. And it's basically like they don't even know why. Basically, they just grew apart.
Okay.
On this same page where I just quoted, this made me giggle. She wished now that she'd worn something other than her ever-present jeans. Dressing up a bit would have been a subtle way of letting Kent know how pleased she was that he'd extended an olive branch. She had on a long-sleeved shirt beneath her red V-neck sweater, which would have gone nicely with her black wool pants. She wished she'd put on her black wool pants. Okay. Beth, I just want you to know, no man has ever looked at a pair of black wool pants and been turned on. So if you were hoping to get back together with your ex, the black wool pants is not the answer, honey.
So her daughters are college age. You and I both have daughters that are college aged.
Yep.
And so at first, when you were trying to explain to me how matronly this woman sounded, it's like, well, it's a romance for an older woman. And then I was like, wait a minute, this is probably a woman our age. And like her red cardigan and her long sleeve shirt and her black wool pants. I'm like, what are they describing? Like, my mom doesn't dress like that.
I know, right? I don't think my mom either, and she's in her 60s at this point. I don't think my mom has ever said
our moms are
black wool pants. Ooh, juicy.
Yeah, our mothers are in their 60s, and I'm trying to think of this matronly frump woman who's wearing this outfit.
But it's literally our age.
Right. I'm like, it's not somebody our age. It's not somebody our mom's age. Is this like who is this frump woman? Okay.
I don't know.
I'm sorry. Ladies, if you are into the cardigan with the long sleeve shirt and the black wool pants and that is your sexy look, I apologize if I have hurt your feelings.
I don't.
I do. I wear that outfit, but I don't wear that outfit thinking I'm looking sexy.
That's my point.
That's what I'm saying. That's like a church outfit. Like you're going
church or a job interview.
Yes.
Oh. Yeah.
Okay.
Made me giggle.
Okay.
I have to question why Beth and Kent ever got together in the first place, because Beth tells her daughters a little ditty about how they met in college. A friend of a friend situation. My roommate was dating your father, and I was dating another guy named Steve. I liked your father a whole lot more than Steve, but he was with Melanie, and I couldn't very well make a play for him. We dated as a foursome quite a bit, and then one day Melanie told me she liked Steve better than Kent, and I confessed that I liked Kent better than Steve. Melanie broke up with Kent, and I took the initiative and phoned to console him. What he wanted, though, was for me to convince Melanie to take him back. I guess I was always the second choice with your father. Hello, Beth. Really? I'm questioning if they should have even gotten together in the first darn place, because if there was no instant connection there and he couldn't give a crap about her, and that, I don't know. It doesn't make
Or was
any
that
sense to
always
me.
it's just her perception? And, maybe because it's been her perception for decades, he finally was like, I can't deal with this anymore. Divorce.
This is basically just like Parent Trap. Dear old dad shows up with a pretty young girlfriend named Danielle, and they're apparently having an inappropriate work relationship. Great. Love that. Beth and her daughters are pretty petty and frankly shitty to Danielle, which I'm like, it's the goddamn holidays. Be the bigger, better people. I know you're not thrilled that daddy's got a new girlfriend, but it's the holidays, and this woman is a stranger to you, and you couldn't be a little nicer to her? Like, I don't
And
know.
how is it her fault?
It's not.
It's not her fault. Why are you treating her like crap?
I'm like, this is just the classic Parent Trap trope, And they really paint Danielle to be this shallow woman, whatever. And of course, she doesn't like dogs, and therefore she must be an awful person. And
Well, I mean, they're probably not wrong, but,
well, it's so deliberate in the painting of her in a negative way. And I was like, maybe she's just a girl, like, calm down.
And she's uncomfortable because she's in someone else's house for a holiday, and you all have like a
With
huge
the
long
exes.
history.
Yeah. There does end up being a weird, spoilers, people, spoilers. There does end up being a weird plot twist with Danielle. Apparently, she was with Kent to actually meet a sailor she had been dating, and just put on a whole show with Kent, pretending to be in the relationship together with him at his request to spark jealousy with Beth, which is just incredibly inappropriate to ask a coworker to do that for a myriad of reasons. Somebody call HR on these people, please.
You know how I feel about the whole jealousy thing. When people are like, I knew he loved me because he was jealous.
Yeah, gross.
No, girl, that is not how that works. Like,
Yep.
somebody being jealous does not equate to love. Like, that is not an equal type of thing. So the whole premise of, I brought this young thing along because I wanted my ex-wife to be jealous.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so dishonest and so weird.
And
But
that's
in
just
the book, we're probably supposed to be like, isn't that sweet? He still loved her and wanted her to be jealous. That's not
Barf.
sweet.
barf.
It's not sweet. No.
Also, I'm just thinking, have things gone badly, and they kind of do go badly. I mean, she could go back to their workplace and be like, sexual harassment, he
Right.
put me in an uncomfortable position, like made me pretend to be his girlfriend and stay at the B&B with him. Like, it smacks of problems.
Yeah. Again, it's that whole suspending disbelief where you're supposed to just, look at this and think, oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, double spoiler. I'm sure you never saw this coming, but Beth and Kent get back together and remarry within the following year, which only 6% of divorced couples remarry each other. So this is totally realistic.
6% is actually higher than I would have thought.
And I think it's pretty low. So
I think, but that's higher than usually it's like, I am done with this person for a reason. 6%. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Found it challenging that they got back together because, during the book, they do have a conversation where they identify that they both fell out of love with each other. There's no real renewed spark or any kind of real epiphany as to why they should get back together beyond, yes, they still kind of love each other, but they just casually miss each other. They spent 2-3 years apart, and they're basically just lonely singles. And so I felt like it was just a matter of convenience. Well, we got 2 kids together. We're lonely and bored. We kind of still love each other. Great, let's remarry. Like, I wasn't feeling it. And it doesn't resolve the fact that they've grown into other people with different interests. Like, there was nothing renewed. There was nothing drawing them back together, in my opinion, besides the the Christmas and they missed Christmas together. I can't ride a whole relationship on Christmas.
Well, I mean, in this genre, you can.
I suppose.
I do feel like that must be the overarching theme between our books. Christmas is not the overarching theme. The overarching theme is, why are these people even together?
Honestly.
Really. There was a sentence in my book where they're describing Sylvie. For a woman who looked as sweet as she was an angel, she was one tough customer. And I wrote in the margin here, no, she's annoying. I don't understand why these people are together. And that seems to be what we chose to read this time around was
knowingly.
Why? Why?
Yeah. Another thing that annoyed me further as a entrepreneurial business owner, Kent takes over her Christmas tree kennel business as they get remarried. And she was doing just fine on her own. She wasn't having financial issues. She wasn't struggling with managing anything. It wasn't like she needed him to take anything off her plate. But he closes up shop on his own career and his own business. And then he's like, I'm going to run your Christmas tree farm for you. Excuse me? That'd be like my husband stepping in and being like, I'm going to run your salon for you. Best of luck, dude. Let me know how that works out for you.
Does she ask him to help?
No. He just does it. And there's no question as to him doing it. And there was no reason for him to do it. It made me salty.
And again, we're supposed to find these things sweet, like, oh my goodness, he wanted to help. You said this was written in 2011?
Yeah.
Man, you'd think at that point we would be a little bit more progressive, but I don't know.
What I honestly found even more disturbing than all of that, though, when completely irrelevant, honestly, to the plot, was the casual doling out of puppies like candy. There was no real vetting of families. There was no adoption screening procedure. You want a puppy? Here you go. Multiple chapters spent on this. And it seemed like probably just honestly a way to mention the other Cedar Cove characters that were probably in previous Macomber books. But again, nothing to do with the main story. And frankly, very annoying. Every time the story progressed even a little bit, new chapter, ignore all that. Now we're talking about characters you don't effing know and have a puppy. Like, just...
was going to say, I bet that it was exactly what you said. That was the point I was going to make as well, where people who have actually been invested in this series of books, who know the town, know the people, for them, it's exciting that, oh my gosh, that couple popped back up again. You know, a couple that they saw the previous romance and read that book a couple years ago, and now the names are mentioned again. So it's just kind of a fun little thing. It's like when famous people, you know, show up in a random scene in a movie and they're only in there for 2 seconds, but you're like, oh, yay. You know, Brad Pitt was in the movie for 10 seconds.
Oh, like a cameo,
kind of
yeah.
Thing.
But this was so much more than a cameo. And I have to say, I've read other authors. They have repeating families and repeating characters, but they don't spend entire fucking chapters switching gears to revisit these old characters. It's more that cameo where they're like, oh, remember William and Susie or whatever, and they are at the party. And that's it. That's like the only, like, it doesn't divert away from the main story, which was not the case in this book. And as someone who's never read Macomber before and has not read Cedar Cove, I didn't have that original interest and draw. So for someone like me who's new to the genre that Macomber has created, I wasn't feeling drawn in to these characters. I was just feeling fucking annoyed. Like, stay on track, woman. Stay with the story and stop giving out puppies like candy.
I wonder, twofold. Not just being annoyed, but if it made you feel more of an outsider, like you couldn't really get into the book because you felt like they were constantly doing like an inside joke sort of thing where you're not part of that. So that probably made it more difficult. But it also says a lot about the actual plot where maybe there just wasn't enough to even write about these two characters, where they had to be propped up by all of these other chapters of people that were completely unrelated to them.
And I'm not kidding. Whole entire chapters, and pretty much every other chapter I was like, you could have made this book probably like 1/3 the size if you had gotten rid of all that blarney.
Well, let's get past the annoyance. Let's get past the fact that both of us think that our characters didn't have any real chemistry. Do you actually have a Boobie Prize? Because right now it feels like you may not have even had the word breast in your book at all.
Well, hold on. I still got more notes.
Good Lord. This book and all its puppies. Okay.
The only thing I got any spark of joy from was at the end of the book when Macomber writes that one of the gifts that Beth receives when she remarries Kent is some cotton dish rags from a knitting group. I love crocheted knitted cotton dish rags, and I loved getting them from my own grandma and my aunts. And I think Bob's aunt, Donna, gave me some too at one point for a Christmas present. And that's the only positive thing I can say about the book. Cotton dish rags. Yay!
Yeah.
But I was
those are one of my favorite things too.
And I love them. If you don't have one, you need to get
They're
one.
Great. They're fantastic.
They are fantastic, and I love them. But I also think it's incredibly telling that the thing I got most excited about in this romance novel was the cotton freaking dish rag.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I love those.
Sometimes there's just things in the book that you're like, this was the best.
So you brought up Boobie Awards.
Yes, our Boobie Prize. What page is yours?
None. Not a single.
I'm like, there's no way. Your book is so milk. Mine only has
told you it's milk. There's not a single fucking reference of boobs or breasts or anything.
Okay. I think milk definitely needs to make it onto our chart, because when people have something too spicy, instead of drinking water, they always drink milk.
Yeah.
So milk is like the other side of the spice. So I totally agree. That needs to be on there. Well, then I win by default, and mine was on page 71, so it was pretty far into the book.
That's deep. That's deep into the book.
Yeah, so Hunter is really upset because he, again, his formula for magic dolls is, under attack. And so Hunter leaned back and found that his head rested against her breasts. When she didn't move away, he closed his eyes. My intentions were so good. I only wanted to help. And then she kisses his forehead. So, we're pretty poblano there.
So you have poblano, I have milk. Romantical reminders.
My romantical reminder is actually something that Chester Fenton had said. And I thought this was really nice, and not necessarily even needing to be applied to romance, but just life in general. And so Chester says, being right isn't always the most important thing with someone you love. And I thought that was nice, because she was in the middle of like an argument with Hunter, and she really wanted to prove her point. And I think she needed somebody to kind of gently steer her away from that thought process and remind her that being right's not always the thing that's going to make you happy.
So for my romantical reminder, we've talked repeatedly before in other podcast episodes about, communication, which is great. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to reiterate that again. I feel like that's really the only message from this book. So I'm going to get sassy here. I'm going to say, if you want to win your ex back, think beyond black wool pants.
I was going to bring that up. I was going to say, are you going to give us some advice for how to dress?
I'm just saying, think beyond black wool pants. If you are trying to get saucy and draw your man's eye back in, think beyond black wool pants. And I'm just going to leave that there.
I don't know, man. Like, I feel as though the black wool pants, that might have been what did it for him. Might have reminded him of, all of their black wool pants escapades.
Nah. So, Megan, what is your book for the next episode? We're continuing with the Christmas theme. What have you got lined up?
My next one is A Charming Christmas Arrangement by Heatherly Bell. And Heatherly is one word, not Heather, space Lee. Heatherly.
Heatherly.
And
okay.
read this book in one sitting.
Oh, you read it already?
Yeah, I finished it. I finished this book.
Oh my God, I haven't even started mine yet.
I stayed up until 3:30 in the morning reading this book. I wasn't tired, and then I got to the point where I just figured I better finish it. This has been the best romance novel I have read during our foray into romance novels.
Wow.
So, since now this won't be posted for another 2 weeks, like the upcoming one, if anybody else wants to read this book, they can read this book and, listen into our next podcast having also read the book. And
so what's the synopsis?
Spoil the ending of that. So I don't know if you can see from the cover, I've got a girl who is with child and a guy who's hidden behind a $1 price sticker. And they are surrounded by Christmas trees because it is Christmassy. And much like your Debbie Macomber and My Familiar Christmas, this is from a series where it's all kind of set in one town. So Charming is a town in Texas. So a charming Christmas arrangement. And the overall synopsis is she is pregnant. It was a one-night stand, and she now needs to go tell the baby daddy that he gonna be a baby daddy. So
read me the back. Read me the back cover.
Okay, so the back. Stacy Hartzell thought finding her unborn baby's father was going to be the hard part. Except widowed ex-SEAL Adam Cruz is determined to step up. And his argument that his veterans' health care is better than her freelancer plan is a fairly convincing one for marriage. But the spark that led to that unforgettable night together is still going strong. Giving in to their growing feelings could put their convenient arrangement in jeopardy, or lead to a second chance and finding lasting love this Christmas.
Okay, I'm actually excited for this story.
Yeah, it's a marriage of convenience type of thing.
Sure.
But I quite enjoyed this book. Initially, you picked a second Debbie Macomber, and you were not
do it,
feeling
Meghan.
it.
I can't. I did pick another Christmas book that I found on further book hunting adventures on my own. This one is called A Wallflower Christmas. We've got
that's like an Empire Waist types
little
of dresses.
Regency era, I think.
Yeah.
Meghan, I believe we've talked about this together before. I love a romance book where there's a secret second cover on the inside. Ooh.
Nice.
So steamy.
Love it.
So the back of the book, and this one is by Lisa Kleypas? I have got to learn to pronounce these names better. Rafe Bowman has just arrived from America for his arranged meeting with Natalie, the very proper and beautiful daughter of Lady and Lord Blandford. His chiseled good looks and imposing physique are sure to impress the lady-in-waiting, and if it weren't for his shocking American ways and wild reputation, her hand would already be guaranteed. Before the courtship can begin, Rafe realizes that he must learn the rules of London society. But when four former wallflowers, and wallflowers is capitalized with a capital W, try their hand at matchmaking, no one knows what will happen. Winning a bride turns out to be more complicated than Rafe Bowman had anticipated, especially for a man accustomed to getting anything he wants. However, Christmas works in the most unexpected ways, changing a cynic to a romantic and inspiring passion in the most timid of hearts.
Okay. All right.
I was excited about the inner cover. I was excited about the little Regency dresses on the cover. I like a historical romance, so I'm ready for it.
All right. Very good. So
you have read a fabulous Christmas romance. We would love to hear from you. Be sure to leave us a comment and let us know if you've read anything or if you know of any great series that are better than what we've been hitting up. We would love to hear that as well. Meghan, anything else we want to hear from our listeners on?
Oh, man. I would love to hear what everybody else is reading in general. Because obviously we we tend to have the things we gravitate toward, but I do feel like there's so much out there and it gets overwhelming to pick what to do next. So having some really good recommendations would be fun. And maybe tell us what
Absolutely.
you're drinking. What are you drinking while you listen? Because I would also love some recipes that would spice up our life.
Yes, I think we would be definitely interested in some winter cocktails as we head into January, February. I know that I'm in a warmer climate now, but I still get that wintry feeling and I like warm, cozy things. So,
Yep, for sure.
awesome. Well, I think that wraps up this episode of Romance on the Rocks.
Thank you for joining us today for Romance on the Rocks. Please subscribe and follow. And if you are a hopelessly romantic fellow bookish biddy like us, think about leaving us a review on Apple iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you watch your podcasts. Your support really means the world to us. And until next time, stay safe and know that you're loved.